try to be that not hard-nosed person and try to look at things from another side. Randy? Ronnie, you got anything with that? And 6?
One thing though that I was thinking as we were reading was how much they said to resolve these things within the church, which is almost like having a different law, which a lot of people condemn, in our country when like Sharia law, etc. But I guess the difference is that they're saying you should be able to resolve these simple disputes without suing one another, and let the church elders, the wisest people in the church, help you decide. And I think that's true. But I don't think we practice that very much. And
no, the trial attorneys don't. The trial attorneys probably won't like this chapter.
I don't think we practice that much in reality, especially these days.
Yeah. And the other thing, remember in our little cartoon yesterday, I immediately thought of that. Don't you realize that your bodies are actually parts of the Christ? You should a man take his body, which is part of Christ, and join it to a prostitute? Never. Mama, you had you knew a lot about the Mormon belief. And that was one of the things that the Mormon belief always preached was your body is a temple, And I've been telling Ashley Rose for a long time, my body's a temple. That's why I got this big belly. I'm
Freddie.
me and my
Freddie.
Jesus forgive me.
But Harry and Fred, in that same verse about like you said in 15 about the prostitute and everything. Well, the reason that is part of his letter was because the temple goddess Aphrodite was in Corinth, and the temple employed more than 1,000 prostitutes as priestesses.
Really?
That's part of the annual worship.
17.
So that, they practiced
What about Pop?
sexual worship with these prostitutes back then.
Really?
That was the reason for him writing this letter to them.
I did not know that. You don't see that in today's modern church.
Fred,
Yep.
how old was Paul?
How old was Paul? Well, we read, correct me guys, but we read he wrote this in around 60 AD, correct? Now, Bridget, you got to realize, and I'll send, Bridget, I'm going to send you, Bill had given us a timeline and let's see if I can pull, I got it right now.
So the First Corinthians wrote in about 55 AD.
Yeah, between 55 to 60, 62, 63 is when all these letters were written. And Christ died at 33 AD. We know that. So you got to figure he was close to the age of Christ. So he's probably in his 60s or 70s, gang. Yeah, I think he was.
I think you're right.
Yeah, he's probably probably around Mama's age, Bridget.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked that is I've been studying a little bit. Well, no, I can't say studying. I'm looking into. Someone had told me all of God's disciples were between the age of 18 and 25.
Yeah, but let me see if I can pull up Bill's thing here, because this, Bridget, this will make you see a lot better. See, local pillars, conical time. Here we go.
I got something for you, Fred.
Okay, you got to go ahead. You got share capability.
Yep. Let's see here. Let's go over here.
Bridget, can you see that?
Can you see the time? I'm going to make it a little bit larger. I'm going to make it larger so you can see it. How's that? A little bit better?
Yeah.
Life of Apostle Paul timeline. They believe he was born in 5 AD. And they believe he died 64 or 68 down here on the right-hand side. So it goes here from 5 to about 45. Then here goes the second level goes 45 to about 60. And then this part goes from like 55 to 70. So he died 64 or 68, they believe.
So he's
Okay.
about 5 years younger than Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this was after where are we at? So you say he's
So you
an
gotta realize,
apostle.
Bridget, these apostles are writing these letters 30 years after Christ has been crucified.
Okay, that was my question. Exactly. So they were young.
Well, when all this happens, you gotta realize that Jesus Christ or the Holy Spirit came to Paul on the road to Damascus, because Paul was Saul, who killed Christians. I mean, he resented them. He didn't leave them. Well, Jesus
He
comes
held the coats.
Holy Spirit comes
He
in
held the,
and
he held the coats of the people who were stoning Stephen in the book of Acts. Saul was actually holding on to their coats, their top coats, while they were stoning Stephen.
yeah. So to me, Paul literally is well, he wrote more books than anybody, but Paul is kind of like what word am I looking for? I don't want to say the king because he's the number one.
Example of Christ.
Yes.
Transformation. I got you.
Transformation is a good word.
Yeah, I got you. Well, that's what I've been looking at is he came and he picked disciples that you wouldn't have picked. Again, judge not lest you be judged. I know he could have judged, but those disciples, I wouldn't have picked them. But that's interesting to hear, to put all this into perspective. Okay, I'm gonna shut up now. Hold on, here, Mom.
No, you're good. Ask any question you want to. Okay, so anybody got anything else about 5 or 6 before I move on to 8?
Paul, I just want to let you know, Freddie, I just attached this timeline diagram to the chat so people can download the PDF file. Exactly. I want you guys to have everything that I'm showing. It's all yours.
Thank you.
Company in 2008.
So, Aunt Debbie, you see how to see that? You can save it to your iPad.
Stops in San Diego. The cannabis that we
Turn it
use
off.
is highest
Here, give it here, babe.
content.
All right, let me turn that off. All right.
Okay, let's see here. All right. You can give me back the screen there, Brother Bill.
You got it.
And
Bingo.
we'll go. I will also send each one of y'all these things that we have here, okay? Those links. So we'll go to chapter 8. I'm sorry, chapter 7. And then I'll get, and Debbie, you're gonna have chapter 8, but I'll take chapter 7. It says here, before Paul answers church questions. After discussing disorder in the church, Paul moves to the list of questions that the Corinthians had sent him, including subjects of marriage, singleness, eating meat offered to idols, property and worship, orderliness in the Lord's Supper, spiritual gifts, and resurrection. Questions that plague churches today are remarkably similar to those who we can receive specific guidance for the areas in this letter. So this tells us that the church had sent Paul letters and that he's answering their questions. So Corinthians 7. Now, regarding the questions you ask in your letters, yes, it is good to abstain from sexual relations, but because there is so much sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman should have her own husband. The husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. Do not deprive each other of sexual relations unless you both agree to refrain from sexual intimacy for a limited time so you can give yourself more completely to prayer. Afterwards, you should come together again so that Satan won't be able to tempt you because of your lack of self-control. I say this as a conscious concession, not as a command, but I wish everyone were single just as I am. Yet, each person has a special gift from God of one kind or another. So I say to those who aren't married and to widows, it's better to stay unmarried just as I am, But if they can't control themselves, they should go ahead and marry. It's better to marry than to burn with lust. But for those who are married, I have a command that comes from, not from me, but from the Lord. A wife must not leave her husband. But if she does leave him, let her remain single or else be reconciled to him, and a husband must not leave his wife. Now I will speak to the rest of you, though I do not have a direct command from the Lord. If a Christian man has a wife who is not a believer, and she is willing to continue living with him, he must not leave her. And if a Christian woman has a husband who is not a believer, and he is willing to continue living with her, she must not leave him. For the Christian wife brings holiness to her marriage, and the Christian husband brings holiness to his marriage. Otherwise, your children would not be holy, but now they are holy. But if the husband or wife who isn't a believer insists on leaving, let them go. In such cases, the Christian husband or wife is no longer bound to the other, for God has called you to live in peace. Don't you wives realize that your husband might be saved because of you? And don't your husband realize that your wives might be saved because of you? Each of you should continue to live in whatever situation the Lord has placed you, and remains as you were when God first called you. This is my rule for all the churches. For instance, a man who was circumcised before he became a believer should not try to reverse it. And the man who was uncircumcised when he became a believer should not be circumcised now. For it makes no difference whether or not a man has been circumcised. The important thing is to keep God's commandments. Yes, each of you should remain as you were when God called you. Are you a slave? Don't let that worry you. But if you got a chance to be free, take it. And remember, if you were a slave when the Lord called you, you are now free in the Lord. And if you were free when the Lord called you, you are now a slave to Christ. God paid a high price for you, so don't be enslaved by the world. Each of you, dear brothers and sisters, should remain as you were when God first called you. Now, regarding your question about the young women who are not married, I do not have a command from the Lord for them. But the Lord in his mercy has given me wisdom that can be trusted, and I will share it with you. Because of the present crisis, I think it is best to remain as you are. If you have a wife, do not seek to end the marriage. If you do not have a wife, do not seek to get married. But if you do get married, it is not a sin. And if a young woman gets married, it is not a sin. However, those who get married at this time still have troubles, and I'm trying to spare you those problems. But let me say this, dear brothers and sisters. The time that remains is very short. So from now on, those with wives should not focus only on their marriage. Those who weep, who rejoice, or who buy things should not be absorbed by the weeping or their joy or their possessions. Those who use the things of the world should not become attached to them, for this world, as we know it, will soon pass away. I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please him, but a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. His interests are divided. In the same way, a woman who is no longer married or has never been married can be devoted to the Lord and holy in body and spirit. But a married woman who has to think about her earthly responsibilities and how to please her husband. I'm saying this for your benefit, not to place restrictions on you. I want you to do whatever will help you to serve the Lord best with a few distractions as possible. But if a man thinks that he's treating his fiancée improperly and would inevitably give it to the passion, let him marry her as he wishes. It is not a sin. But if he has decided firmly not to marry and there is no urgency that he can control his passion, he does well not to marry. So the person who married his fiancée does well, and the person who doesn't marry does even better. A wife is bound to her husband as long as he lives. If her husband dies, she is free to marry anyone she wishes, but only if he loves the Lord. But in my opinion, it would be better for her to stay single, and I think I'm giving the counsel from my God Spirit. I say this. Wow. So maybe 31 years ago, I should have stayed single. Not really. What I found there was pretty awesome was, if you think about it, a Christian wife makes a non-Christian husband holy. And that goes back to, I know that I've heard places, and Randy, you can correct me here, but I believe that as a mother and a father, you can help your children and even generations down the line be graced by God. And same thing here with a husband and a wife, right? That's what it's saying. Is that what y'all are getting? Randy, right?
No, I agree. And, you know, how it starts off that if the husband or the wife, either one of them is not a believer, you know, if you choose to stay with them, that's fine. But I've seen, I know of probably 3 or 4 different couples where that exactly what, you know, the husband was an atheist or the wife was an atheist, but the spouse of the atheist was a devout Christian. Well, eventually, guess what? That atheist got saved, and then, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've seen it happen 3 or 4 times in my life, and there's a couple that my wife talks to, you know, weekly. You know, talks to the wife, and you know, and that's, you know, it's unbelievable. But not only has changed the husband or the wife who was the atheist, but it's changed their whole family and generations to come.
Ronnie, you got anything about that?
Sorry, I'm on mute. I was going, that made me think of when I joined my church here in Houston. Man, we had this senior pastor. He's now retired and moved on to some other ministries, but man, he was a powerful speaker, and just, he had a gift. And you would think, wow, this guy is, you know, brought up in this Christian family or whatever, you know. And you know, we have when you join the church, we have you know, a series of meetings you need to go to, and you literally have to profess your faith, you know, and they don't let unbelievers join the church. You with me? You have to profess your faith. When did you first come to know Christ? Have you been baptized? When? Where? What led you to be saved, and all of that? Well, he told his story, you know, to get us started, and he was an atheist. And so he said, I grew up in Tennessee and I didn't really go to church. And when I got to college, he said, there was this pretty girl that I wanted to go out with. And he told his friends, you know, I really want to go out with this girl. And they said, hey man, be careful. She's a Jesus freak. That's the exact words he used. He goes, she's a Jesus freak. And so anyway, he kept asking her out, and she said no, like 3 or 4 times. I think on the 6th time he asked her on a date, she finally said yes. And anyway, it's like Randy was just saying, I mean, this was a great man, but he was an unbeliever, atheist, and God put this woman in his life that brought him to Jesus. And he ended up being one of the best preachers, you know, that I've ever listened to speak. Very humble. But
that brings up something else, Ronnie, is I don't know if y'all have seen the God's Not Dead 1 and 2, but in one of those, it states, you know, about one of these guys is an atheist, is you not believe in something that doesn't exist.
mm-hmm.
You know, as atheists, they do believe in God, but they're not saved, they're not Christians. But, you know, how can you not believe in something that doesn't exist? Because as an atheist, you think, well, that's not true, he doesn't exist, and so forth. But, you know.
Mm-hmm. Strange one.
Yeah, it is strange. But so as we move into, anybody got out anything about chapter 7?
Nope, but I gotta go. We'll see.
Yeah, Fred, I think we're all out of time today.
Yeah, let's go ahead. We're gonna finish. We're gonna do 8 tomorrow.
All right, cool.
And Debbie, we'll finish. You'll do 8 tomorrow, okay? Mama, I love you.
I love you.
I'll just in prayer real quick. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us. I want to thank you for this group of people that met this morning, Lord. Be with them throughout their day. Thank you so much for the leadership that's around me, Lord. Thank you for my children. I want to thank you for my family. I want to thank you for this world, this country. Be with our government, Lord. Please, Lord, be with the troops all around the world. I love you with all my heart and all my soul. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Hey,
Amen, brother.
have a great day. Bye, Ronnie. Hey, Mama. Mama and Debbie,
Yeah,
Mama, can you see me?
I can.
Okay, well, we can't see your pretty face. Can you see Aunt Debbie?
No.
You don't see her? Swipe to the left or to the right, Mama.
Yeah.
You're on a phone. See, on a computer, you see everybody. No, you there you go. Now just swipe to the left and you should be able to see Aunt Debbie and me. There's only 3 of us in here.
Yeah, I can see y'all.
You can see both of us now?
There's 4 of us.
There's 4 of us. There,
Four?
Bridget.
Oh, okay, there's Bridget.
Olivia, put your face to the phone.
Yeah, you got the phone looking straight up, so just take the phone. There you go. Now,
Yeah, I'm down. Okay.
there you
that's
go.
good.
Now we can see you.
Oh,
I enjoyed that, son.
So I'm so glad that you joined us. Normally it doesn't last this long, but we did that little test in the beginning and everything of that nature. So, but I'm so thankful for you getting in here this morning. And I'm gonna tell you a secret.
You thank your sister for that. She come
Well,
running in
Debbie-
here.
Debbie
She said,
taught
"Wake up,
her
wake
how
up,
to
I'm
do it.
gonna get you on the friend."
And Debbie, you taught them how to do it.
What?
And Debbie
What?
taught y'all how to do it.
Hey, she sure did. She walked me right through. Look at her, that computer queen.
And Debbie,
I thought-
before you got in, Bridget had told us that you had helped her. So Bill and them was like, wow, look at Debbie out there teaching
I
people.
can't believe it.
What,
I said, go
here's
there,
the-
Bridget.
here's the Debbie's
Look,
answer. I just start pushing buttons. I just push buttons and
That's what I-
they pop up.
and Debbie was like, Bridget, just back all the way out. Now you push this. You see up there where it says, son, and you push, I'll get you in there now. And she said, I'm just gonna back up and go with you because
I did.
you know,
I backed out. I didn't know if I'd come back or not. I thought none of us is gonna be at the
she
meeting
did,
when I
you
get-
did awesome. Great.
I want to
Here,
tell y'all,
Mama.
this is great. See, Bridget, how much you learn. You see Olivia, and y'all need to get one of these Bibles, and you'll know
I got
everything. You got that, Bridget?
Mama,
I've got the women's and the large print, and the King James.
Okay.
What?
y'all-
it's hard.
Okay, Debbie, you almost made me cuss. I didn't think I learned.
Huh?
Show mama, show mama.
No, I'm gonna get her one. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna get her one, just like that one. I'll get you one, Mama.
No, you don't be buying us one. We'll get ours.
Hey,
Let him do what
I
he
want to
wants.
say, oh, you can't take my
Make
blessing.
you some of that toast, Bridget.
I'm gonna get you one because that's what, and I gotta get Trisha one, because I want Trisha to have one. And because they're so much easier to understand.
Oh, God.
But my
I'm
whole
with
point is that I want y'all to see what you learn. And just like today, you'll learn things just by the other people talking. Things that I've learned so much about the Bible in these 60 days.
Yeah. Well,
Don't you go-
evidently.